Salut, I'm Felicia Londré for 5-Minute Molière for KC MOlière 400 in 2022. This episode is going to be a bit impromptu. I just thought it was time to talk about what's available. Many theaters are beginning to choose their plays for the 400th birthday season. So I wanted to run through a few ideas in the 5 minutes that we have. First of all, don't neglect the one-act plays. They're delightful. They're charming little farces, mostly written early in Molière's career, and they work beautifully with young people and outdoor performance. There are many, many British translations. We don't have time to go through all the possible translations, but this is an interesting little collection that includes a lot of the Sganarelle plays. Sganarelle was a character that Molière wrote for himself, except he was in a different function or dramatic, sometimes a father, sometimes a servant. Every play was different, but he appears 7 times in Molière's oeuvre, in his canon. I wanted to especially mention the great translator of Molière and other 17th century verse plays, Richard Wilbur, the late Richard Wilbur, who will always be the greatest translator of Molière into English verse. Delightful, witty, wonderful plays. And this one, School for Husbands and the Imaginary Cuckold. I've already talked about The Bungler, L'Étourdi, Molière's first 5-act play, hilarious piece. And Lover's Quarrel, Dépit Amoureux. He actually translated most of them. I don't have them all here at hand. He translated an Amphitryon that is based on the classical Greek mythology of Amphitryon, and it's a wonderful play. I'm sorry I've never seen a production of it, but the Wilbur translation is just great, and it's in a varied verse form, not all Alexandrins. And then, of course, there's School for Wives and Learned Ladies, 2 plays about a certain coterie of women that Molière was aware of in Paris at the time. School for Wives has been very popular, frequently produced and frequently translated and adapted. So here's one example of an adaptation by Ranjit Bolt. And this one is absolutely delightful. I love Liz Lochhead's versions of Molière. She's a Scottish playwright and has done several. I'll be showing you a couple more. But this is her version of School for Wives, educating Agnes. It's a joy. And if you have someone who can do a Scottish accent, even better. Don Juan, of course, has got many people to adapt it for modern versions. It's such a universal and perennial character that lots of translations as well as adaptations are available. This one is by Neil Bartlett, contemporary British playwright. And then, of course, there's Tartuffe, probably the most translated, maybe the most performed of all of Molière's plays. So Wilbur translated it, and many, many others. And then we get from translations into adaptations. This one it's a modern adaptation that casts Tartuffe as a deposed televangelist, who, and the character names are all the same. He fools Orgon and tries to get their money. But there are a lot of, and you can do that kind of adaptation even with a straight translation of Molière. Just set it in a different period and it works. I mean, there's been a Tartuffe, oh, I can't wait. I'm not going to get into all the possibilities. We'll have to talk about that in another time. Timothy Mooney is a specialist in Molière. He travels around doing his Molière programs. He has lately branched out into other subjects, but he put together this one-man show based on clips from Molière. He's done his own translations, and he's delightful. He really gets it. And then the Misanthrope. Now, French people sometimes say the Misanthrope is the French Hamlet, maybe. The action is in the talk, and it's frequently been done as where's a real I don't have one handy. A straight translation, but it's frequently been set in 1930s cocktail style. That seems to work beautifully for the Misanthrope. And it too has been much adapted. David Ives' version, The School for Lies, gets produced a lot. The School for Lies, adapted by David Ives, and he's made something of a specialty of adapting plays by 17th and 18th century French playwrights, and they work beautifully on stage. Another version of the Misanthrope is by Ranjit Bolt, a contemporary British playwright, and he has adapted it as the Grouch. And yet another, the Scottish playwright I love, Liz Loughead, has adapted the Misanthrope as Misery Guts. And she's also done a Tartuffe in this same volume. And this is a really strange one. Christopher Hampton, whom you know is a major British playwright of the 70s and 80s, and now has done a lot of translation and adaptation. He wrote a play called The Philanthropist. And what it is a mirror image, a sort of reversal of the misanthrope. So where the misanthrope hates humanity, the philanthropist just can't say no to all of people's demands on him. He loves humanity. And then finally, just a couple of ones that deal with Moliere's life, or plays not by Moliere or adapted from Moliere, but about Moliere. And again, this wonderful Scottish playwright, Liz Loughead, has done one called Ton Man Moliere. It calls for Scottish dialect, and it's wonderful. It's so funny. It's a fall off your chair laughing play while you read it. And then quite the opposite, we have one that is much more a darker take, and that is the Soviet playwright Mikhail Bulgakov and his version of Moliere, The Cabal of Hypocrites, that shows Moliere as hemmed in by the authority figure who had control. I think I better stop now. This is 5 Minute Molière, KC MOlière 42022. Thank you.